The next thing I'm going to do is correct the delay between the drum microphones. And I'm also going to check the polarity between the tracks to make sure that they're working good with each other. Normally what I do is I insert a plugin called Auto Align from Soundradix. So I'll click on the kick. I'll select all of the drum tracks by holding shift. Then I hold shift option and I'm going to go to the first insert slot and I'm going to look for Soundradix, which is here. And I'm going to say Auto Align Mono, and that through a plugin on all of the tracks. And I'm going to focus on the snare first, and I'm going to send the snare on channel 1, and I want it to detect delay and polarity. I'm going to disengage my groups. I'm going to send the audio to the overhead from the snare, so I just want to hear those two. Now I'm going to receive on 1 delay and polarity, and I don't need to have that here. Sorry about that. That's just audio being sent. Receive on channel 1 delay and polarity. So I have the 2 tracks selected, overhead left and the snare. These tracks are very clean. You don't see a lot of noise floor here. So now I'm gonna begin the detection process. Okay, and the plugin decided to offset it by negative 105 samples. So let's see the difference that it made. I'm going to play both of the tracks and then I'm going to bypass the plugins so you can hear the difference. I'm going to play it now with the plugins engaged. To do that, I need to make sure that my tracks are selected. Now I can use the shortcut Shift Control option to bypass the plugins that are part of the selected tracks. Shift Control option. Immediately you could hear the bottom end get beefed up a little bit and also the width of the drums. So I'm going to do all of the drums now, and then we're going to compare all of the drums with the Auto Align plugin on and off. Now I'm going to take the audio from the overhead left and I'm going to send it to the overhead right. And I'm going to use a different channel. I'm going to send on channel 2, and then on the overhead right, I'm going to receive on channel 2. I'm going to activate the delay and polarity switch so that the plugin can try to detect any delay and phase issues. Here we go. Now I'm gonna bypass the plugin so you can hear the difference. Let's move on to the next track. And now I'm gonna send from the overhead left, I'm gonna send to the kick. And I sent the audio on channel 2. So I'm going to open up the kick and I'm going to receive on channel 2. Engage the delay and polarity switch. I'm going to solo the kick and solo the overhead left. I'm going to hit play and then I'm going to detect. I sent the audio from the overhead left to the kick and it's not sounding right. So I'm going to cancel that and I'm going to try to send the audio actually from the snare to the kick, because I'm looking at the microphones and the distance between the microphones, and the overhead left is not working with the kick. So let me just go ahead and send it from the snare instead of the overhead left. So I sent on one and I'm going to receive on one, and I'm going to reset it, engage the delay and polarity, and I'm going to begin the detection process using the snare and the kick. I'm going to select both of these tracks. I'm going to receive on one for the kick track and begin the detection process. That's not working either. So I'm going to try the overhead right to the kick. So on the overhead right, I'm going to send on 3, and on the kick, I'm going to reset it to factory, and I'm going to receive on 3. Engage the delay and polarity switch and begin the detection process. That sounds a little bit better. Let's hear them again with the plugins engaged and bypassed. Okay, listen to the kick. Now it sounds fatter, it sounds more round, smoother, and it still has the attack that was lacking when I was aligning the other microphones. Listen for the bottom end. Hopefully you can hear that. I can hear it. It's very subtle, but I can hear it. Moving on. Now I'm going to do the toms, and it looks like I have 4 toms. So I'm going to send the audio from the overhead left, which I was sending on channel 2. And I sent it to, and actually, yeah, I'll take it from 2. So I'll take it from this one, and I'm going to select both tracks. I'm going to bring up the plugin here, and I'm going to receive on channel 2, engage the delay and polarity switch, and begin the detection process. Okay, I want you to hear the tom 1. And it sounded good off the bat, even just hearing the bleed into the mics. Check it out. Listen even how that's a tom mic, so it's got a lot of bleed, but listen how it brings the snare a little bit forward. If you can visualize that, and if you can hear it, when the plugins are bypassed, the snare sounds like it's behind, but when I engage the plugin, the snare comes forward a little bit by about, I don't know, 12 inches or so. Check it out. Hopefully you can hear it. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the signal from tom 1 to tom 2, and I'm going to send on channel 4 and receive on channel 4. Engage the delay and polarity switch, begin the detection process. Right away you can hear the difference. Okay, let's move on to tom 3. So I'm going to take the signal from tom 2, send it on 5, receive on 5, engage the delay and polarity switch, begin the detection process. And I can hear the kick a little bit more on tom 3. So instead of taking the audio from tom 1 and 2, I'm going to take it from the overhead right. It's sending audio from channel 3, and I'm going to receive it on channel 3. Sounds a lot better. And lastly, I'm going to take the audio from tom 3, and I'm going to send it on 6, and I'm going to receive it on tom 4 on 6. Deselect this track, go back to tom 3 and tom 4 selected, take off the shift, the solo, and solo both of the tracks that I'm working on. Begin the detection process. And one of the things that I try to shy from using this plugin is actually reversing the polarity. Sometimes if you reverse the polarity, it might sound right, but I prefer to use a mic that is closer to the source. So if I have the kick and the snare closer to each other, I prefer to align it with those mics so that it sounds fuller to me and it's more cohesive with what the drum kit's supposed to sound like. I've aligned all of the microphones from the drum kit. Now we're gonna listen to them in context, and I'm gonna start with the plugins engaged and then bypassed. Hopefully you can hear what a difference that made. Okay, that's a job well done, I think, with this plugin. Next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna commit these plugins on these tracks, and I'm gonna get rid of the plugins themselves because I like to keep an order on my plugins, and I want the first row to have all of the like plugins, if that makes sense. And I'll explain to you why in a little bit. So I'm gonna select all of the drum tracks, and then I'm gonna right click here on the first plugin. And because I selected all of the tracks, it's gonna commit the plugin in all of the tracks. Do nothing with the source tracks because I wanna compare them. Insert them after the last selected track, which is the overhead right. I'm not gonna consolidate the clips, and I'm not gonna render the automation, the volume, and the mute because I haven't done a static mix yet, but I am gonna leave the group assignments. And this is doing all of the tracks that I selected, but I had to use the shortcut shift option and right click to make sure that it caught all of the tracks. So I have the two groups here, and I'm gonna go down here, and I'm just gonna see if the committed kick is on the same spacing. It looks good. Let's listen to them. Okay, definitely I can hear the change between the original tracks and the new committed tracks. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna just hide and deactivate these tracks. So they're still here, they're just not active. And now notice that all of my tracks have the CM extension on them, and that stinks. So I'm gonna relabel them real quick. Okay, and that's easy for me to identify. And I left the track names with the CM, and that's gonna help me to identify them a little later. So now I can move on.